Hello, my friends, hello, and welcome once again to Stately Vaughan Manor, where Roger and I have returned for my weekly reading report. It's time for my weekly reading report, that spellbinding program where I talk about all the stuff that I read during the previous week. I read some stuff, Roger. It's been busy because of the time of year that it is, and there's been all kinds of other things I've had to take care of, but I did manage to read some stuff. So let's talk about the stuff that I read. Okay, let's break out the 500 book challenge. The challenge where I have to read 500 books that I own before I'll buy any new ones. And it is rolling right along slowly. So, book 322 was Full Moon by Jim Butcher. So, Full Moon, the second in the Dresden Files books. I have all of these books. Well, I don't have all of them. I have all of them up to 2021 or 2022 or something like that. I have all of those on my e-reader. I have them all as ebooks. Because when I started BookTube, I kept hearing about the Dresden Files, and I thought, yeah, I'm going to want to read those someday. So I got all of them as ebooks. And I'm finally getting around to reading them. I read the first one, and I thought it was really good. I really enjoyed it. So I thought I would read the second one, Full Moon, or Full Moon, Roger, and see what I thought of it. And it was, again, a really good book. I didn't think it was quite as good as the first one, actually, but almost. I mean, it's close enough. They're pretty much both really good books. Full Moon, as you might expect, has a lot to do with werewolves. That's what I thought from the title. And indeed, there are a lot of werewolves in this book. All kinds of different kinds of werewolves, which is kind of awesome. And so there are some murders being committed, obviously by werewolves, but there are all kinds of different werewolf suspects. There are all kinds of different werewolves in this book, and Dresden has to figure out who the real werewolf killer is, and gets himself into all kinds of terrible trouble, like in the first book, but he gets himself into even more terrible trouble in this one. He has a rough time in Full Moon. So Dresden barely survives, but he does make it through, and it's a very enjoyable, entertaining book. I only had one issue with this book, and that's with a certain character, which is the terrible, terrible police officer, Detective Murphy. So Detective Murphy is awful. She's awful in every way. I hate Detective Murphy. So let's talk about the awful Detective Murphy. And she actually makes a good antagonist. She does make a good villain. She's somebody you just hate. And she proves to be quite dangerous to Dresden in this book and causes him a lot of trouble. But the thing is, I don't think Butcher intends her to be a villain. So this character is a detective on the police force. She runs a special division that's involved in looking into, weird woo-woo cases. And so Dresden is frequently hired by her as a consultant to the police department. But also because she's an idiot, she often suspects Dresden of committing the very crimes that he's there to consult for. And after the last book, she was in the last book as well. She's a recurring character. She did the same stuff in the last book. But Dresden proved himself, and, you would think after the last book, she'd be like, okay, this guy's trustworthy. No, not at all. And the really sad thing is that Dresden, he seems to think that Detective Murphy is his friend, and he's always sad about letting Detective Murphy down. So let me give you an example of what happens in this book, which makes her just so terrible. First of all, she's a terrible, terrible police officer. She's the worst. She doesn't deserve her badge. She should get fired right away. And in fact, in this book, it begins with her being investigated by Internal Affairs, and she should be fired. She should be. So there's a series of murders going on in this book, obviously committed by werewolves. Clearly, they're werewolves that are committing these crimes. And Detective Murphy, on the slimmest of evidence, decides that Dresden must be involved in this series of crimes. I mean, the evidence is really weak. There's some stuff, but it's pretty weak. And so she decides to bring Dresden, bring him in. She tells him it's for consulting work. She brings him to an active crime scene. One would assume, there's been a murder. One would assume that there are crime scene techs around collecting evidence. Photographs are being taken. There's a lot going on at this crime scene. So she brings Dresden to the crime scene, the very crime scene that she thinks he is responsible for. She brings him to the crime scene, the active crime scene that she thinks he could be responsible for. And she leads him around the crime scene. Here, look at all this, and look at that, and look at this. And so any evidence that they eventually find linking Dresden to the crime is, of course, useless, because she just brought him to the crime scene where they are collecting evidence. So he could always say later on, well, of course my fingerprints were at the crime scene. Detective Murphy brought me to the crime scene. Of course, my fingerprints are everywhere. Oh yeah, I touched that when I was there, when she brought me to the crime scene. Same with any other kinds of physical evidence that are found at the scene. He's there. She brought him there. She corrupted all the evidence. So she's an idiot. So she's stupid, for one thing. She's dumb for suspecting him, and she's a complete idiot for bringing him to the crime scene. Then she gets angry at Dresden and punches him in the face. That's right. Detective Murphy assaults a suspect. She assaults a suspect. So she should be fired for this alone. One would assume they're not alone here. There are other, you would think they're crime scene technicians and all these other people, officers around. But she punches him in the face. Twice, if I'm recalling correctly. So yeah, any blood that's found on the crime scene that's Dresden's, well, there you go. She just punched her suspect in the face. So she assaulted him, which is serious, of course. And as soon as she did that, I thought, I'm always going to hate this character. She's a terrible police officer. She doesn't deserve to be one. And then Roger, they put Dresden in a police car. She arrests him, puts him in a police car, handcuffs him, and then they just leave. Like, she leaves him in the police car alone in the back of the police car, and the police car is unlocked, and somebody comes and helps Dresden escape. She just opens the door and he gets out. Now, normally, this would get him in a lot of trouble. But remember, he just was physically assaulted by the main detective on the case. Who knows what he's going to face when he actually gets to the police station. And so he has an excuse, right, to get away that he could use later when he's rearrested, if he is. Well, yeah, I had to get out because she just beat me at the crime scene. Who knows what she's going to do when she takes me to the police station. So yeah, Detective Murphy's an idiot. And the saddest thing is that Dresden is like, oh, it's all my fault. I mean, he's just so, he's just like, it's all my fault. I let down my friend, Murphy. It's like, no, Murphy is not your friend. She's using you. She's abusing you. and she's trying to make you take the fall for crimes she's too stupid or lazy to solve. I I hate Detective Murphy. I hate Detective Murphy. Yeah. And maybe you're supposed to. Maybe that's Dresden's that's excuse me, maybe that's Jim Butcher's whole thing with this character. You're just supposed to despise her. I don't know. But I do. So I just didn't like that character. And sadly, this seems to be a recurring character I'm going to have to deal with for the rest of the books, unfortunately. I was really hoping she would get torn apart by werewolves, but no such luck. Oh well, so that was Full Moon. Pretty good book, except for Detective Murphy. So that was that. Let's go to book 323, which didn't have any characters nearly as annoying. Book 323 was Doc Savage, the man who shook the earth. Look at that cool cover. So this is Doc Savage, the man who shook the earth. So I am reading the Doc Savage novels in the order that they were originally published in Doc Savage magazine back in the 1930s, and this is the 12th book that was published. In the Bantam series, it was published as number 43, but it is actually number 12. And when was this published? It was published in Doc Savage magazine, February 1934. And so I've completed a year's worth of Doc Savage adventures with this one, The Man Who Shook the Earth. What a great time I've had reading Doc Savage. And I tell you, it's a lot better to read them in the order that they were published, because they do refer all the time to other Doc Savage adventures that took place earlier. They're not essential to the plot, like you don't need to read them, but it's better, in my opinion, if you're going to read the series, if they're referring to earlier stories, it's just better to have read those stories. And so I'm glad I've decided to read them in the proper order. This adventure, The Man Who Shook the Earth, was really good. It's not the best Doc Savage novel of the 12 I've read so far, but it's a really good one. Much better than The Brand of the Werewolf, which I read last month, which wasn't bad at all. It was good. But this one's better. This one is quite a bit better, I think. Excellent Doc Savage adventure. It was one of those adventures where you don't know for sure who is the actual criminal, the man who shook the earth, but it's, again, pretty easy to figure out. It usually is in Doc Savage adventures. It was tremendous fun. This guy, this evil villain who can create earthquakes. He has a machine that can create earthquakes, which is a pretty terrible destructive weapon. And Doc Savage and his team have to go up against him, and of course, they manage. Doc Savage, very, very capable pulp adventure hero. And so I will be going into the second year of Doc Savage Adventures in 2026. I think the next one is the Meteor Menace, if I'm remembering correctly. So yeah, I have all of the Doc Savage Adventures. Most of them I have in the Bantam paperback series, although I have a few in the Nostalgic Ventures. I think it was Nostalgic Ventures who published Doc Savage Adventures also. I have some of those as well. So yeah, going into the second year of reading Doc Savage, it's a great time. Detective Murphy isn't in here, so it's awesome. So that was great. That was book 323. That wasn't all I read, though. I am reading, now that I'm done with the Fantastic Four, I am reading every issue of Spider-Man from the first run of Spider-Man, which ran from 1962 to, what was it, 1998? Now I can't remember. I think it was 98. When they restarted the series again with a new #1 issue, as comic books like to do all the time now. But the original run lasted a long time of Spider-Man, and I'm going to read every issue of that run, also including a bunch of other Spider-Man comics that occasionally intersected with the storyline, which it did a lot in the 90s. But I'm still in early days here. This is the very first Amazing Spider-Man Epic Collection, which collects the first 17 issues and the first annual, and Amazing Fantasy number 15, of course, the first adventure of Spider-Man. And I haven't read as much of this as I've wanted to, just because it's been too crazy and I haven't been able to read Spider-Man every day like I wanted to. But hopefully I'll be able to catch up. Probably on Christmas, I'll read some Spider-Man, and this weekend. So what issue am I at now? I am going to be reading issue 11, which is going to be fantastic because it is the return of Dr. Octopus. The return of Dr. Octopus. I just read, which one is it? No, that's the Electro issue. That was awesome too. But I just read this issue, The Enforcers, which has a terrible cover. Issue number 10, I don't know what the deal is with this terrible cover. But it does have indeed a terrible cover. But this one has the Enforcers and the mysterious big man. Who is the big man? Who is he? That was I knew who it was, of course, because I've read this issue before. But it would have been a genuine surprise, I think, if I didn't know. I can't remember. It's been so long since I read it the first time. I was a little kid. And in this one, we learn why Jonah Jameson hates Spider-Man so much. It's because he's jealous. He's jealous of Spider-Man. As J. Jonah Jameson says, all my life I've been interested in only one thing, making money. And yet Spider-Man risks his life day after day with no thought of reward. If a man like him is good, is a hero, then what am I? I can never respect myself while he lives. Spider-Man represents everything that I'm not. He's brave, powerful, and unselfish. The truth is I envy him. I, J. Jonah Jameson, millionaire, man of the world, civic leader. I'd give everything I own to be the man that he is. But I can never climb to his level. So all that remains for me is to try to tear him down. Because heaven help me, I'm jealous of him. So that we get the motivation for J. Jonah Jameson's hatred of Spider-Man. And it's great. These issues are absolutely fantastic. They're some of the best comic books ever written, I think. Steve Ditko, Stan Lee, they just do an amazing job on these issues. And the incredible Dr. Octopus returns again with issue 11. Really looking forward to that. More trouble with Betty Brant. Remember way back in the day when Spider-Man was in love with Betty Brant? That was a troubled relationship. So I've been reading those things, and right at this very moment, I'm reading the choice for Roger's Cheap Old Book Club, his Cheap Old Book Club pick, which is Omoo by Herman Melville, which was his second book, Herman Melville. And Omoo is the direct sequel to Typee, which I read last December. And so far, Omoo is pretty good. So Typee and Omoo were it's kind of like fictionalized memoirs, really, where he takes things that actually happened and kind of fictionalize. He makes up some stuff. Let's just say that, and mixes that up with what really happened, and makes books out of them. And Typee was really, really good about his experiences on an island with a tribe who are cannibals. But other than that, they're great, awesome people. Other than the fact that they were cannibals who keep him prisoner, they were pretty cool. And so he escaped from the cannibal island and ends up on this piece of crap whaling ship and becomes a member of the crew of this absolutely piece of junk, dysfunctional whaling ship. And that's what's going on in Omoo. He probably should have stayed with the cannibals. And I think as soon as he gets on the ship and he looks around at what a mess he is he's in, he's like, oh yeah, I probably should have stayed with the cannibals. But he didn't. He's stuck on this piece of crap whaling ship. And it's really interesting. It doesn't seem to have a plot at all. But it does seem like this is a book that includes a lot of stuff that really happened and a lot of stuff that he actually experienced. We'll see how it goes, but it's a pretty entertaining book so far. I've heard Omoo is not his best book. But so far, it's pretty good. So I haven't read much of it. I'm only on Where am I at? I'm on chapter 18, and they're like tiny chapters. They're all like a page and a half so far. So I have a lot more Omoo to read. So I'll give you a full report next week if I'm finished with it, which I might not be. We'll see. You know, it's the holidays. Things are busy. Things are busy, Roger. We're in great demand, Roger and I. And that's everything for this week. I definitely won't be back for Epic Comic Book Wednesday tomorrow. Sorry, guys, but there's other stuff going on. But I will hopefully be back on Christmas. I will see you then.